And welcome into the 49ers Report. I am Cam Rogers. You just saw every throw from Jimmy Garoppolo during that Week 1 preseason game against the Dallas Cowboys. A victory, might I add. Let's get through some of the latest 49ers news here on the program. Alfred Morris, now a member of San Francisco. He has reunited with Kyle Shanahan. Morris is a 6-year NFL veteran. He will join the 49ers in Houston in advance of the team's 2 practices against the Texans and, of course, Saturday's preseason game. Now, the news comes as Jerick McKinnon and Matt Breida are dealing with some injuries right now, and Morris has some familiarity with Kyle Shanahan, playing for Kyle with the Washington Redskins when Shanahan was the offensive coordinator. There's a look at some of the offensive numbers for Alfred Morris during his first couple of seasons. And boy, does it seem a long time ago with those stat lines there. Good years under Shanahan. Maybe Morris makes the team, but in all reality, he's just a body there as Breida and McKinnon will slowly be ushered in back into the practice mold. All right, so Morris, more time out there on the football field for him. No longer a free agent. He is employed, at least for now. All right, how about this? Richard Sherman is back at practice for the 49ers. Obviously, big-time news here, working his way back from a hamstring injury he suffered on August 5th. Now, he alternated reps with Jimmy Ward during Monday's 11-on-11 drills, though it should be noted that players weren't sporting full pads during these practices. Now, it's probably unlikely that Sherman participates in joint practices with the Houston Texans this week ahead of Saturday's preseason tilt. But Shanahan did say that Sherman is progressing and he will also take it very slow. And why wouldn't they? I mean, the 49ers have a potential Pro Bowler corner this season in Richard Sherman. You want to take the proper precautions here to make sure he is good to go for the regular season. No need to really use him all that much this preseason, and it begs the question, will Richard Sherman make the Pro Bowl? Type away in comments. Type 1 for yes, type 2 for no. I'm on Facebook Live as well as YouTube, and I will be checking what you say. So, vote away. All right, next up, Mr. Garnett is back at practice after a 2-week hiatus. Now, he was dealing with a knee injury. He took snaps with the 3rd team, might I add. Jonathan Cooper is working his way back from a knee injury. He worked with the 2nd team, and guess what? Eric Magnuson replaced Mike Person, who had the day off with the 1st team reps there. So, as we stand, right guard is the only slot there where we are wondering who is going to be the starter, outside of punter, of course, but, you know, it's punter after all. So, will Garnett eventually entrench himself as that right guard for the 49ers? We shall see. He's in the rumors section as well. And I'll get to those rumors, but first a word from our friends at Game Time.
Did you know that ticket prices can actually go down right before the game? That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time tracks ticket prices in real time from thousands of trusted sellers, then shows you all the best deals. So we can get tickets at the last minute for up to 60% off. Download Game Time now.
All right, so rumor number 1 on the list, will Richie James make the 53-man roster? Going to put this firmly in the rumor category as we stand. 2 Jetheads on this one. Now, it's only 1 game, but James showed a ton of ability in that Week 1 preseason matchup against Dallas. His yards after the catch ability fits perfectly for Kyle Shanahan. I'm starting to think the 49ers have no other option but to keep this kid on the roster. And for the 49ers last season, they only kept 6 wide receivers. So you would assume that is going to be the case in 2018. And you would also assume that Pierre Garçon, Marquise Goodwin, Trent Taylor, and Dante Pettis are virtual locks. Kendrick Bourne is likely to follow as that number 5 guy, which leaves, in all reality, 1 final slot there on the wide receiver depth chart, and I think it could go to Richie James. So I have a new projected wide receiver depth chart here. Obviously, Garçon, Goodwin, Taylor, the first 3 guys on the board. Then you get to Dante Pettis. I'm still on Kendrick Bourne as well as that 5th guy. And there you go, Richie James, the rookie out of Middle Tennessee State, that final wide receiver to make the roster. He's electric, incredible college career. I think you have to have him on this team. and I think he'll be very useful for this squad as well. All right, speaking of making the team, what's the deal with Joe Williams? Is the opportunity his now to make the team? Well, 3 Jedheads on this one. Pretty faithful in this. Now, there's a difference between having the opportunity to make the team and actually making the team. So, with injuries to Matt Breida and Jerick McKinnon, I think it has officially become the Joe Williams show for the rest of the preseason, although Raheem Mostert may have something to say about that. Now, in terms of looking back on the tape, both Williams and Mostert struggled in that Week 1 preseason game. Williams did have a touchdown, but beyond that could only average just under 2.5 yards per carry. Mostert, on the other hand, had a nice collection of yards ruined by a fumble. So it's those two going at it now for the rest of training camp and preseason to make the 53-man roster, and maybe Alfred Morris shines as well. We shall see. But Joe Williams has all the opportunity in front of him. He's got to seize on it. All right, next up on the list. Will Josh Garnett win the right guard spot for San Francisco? 2 Jedheads here. I'm still in the camp that I think Jonathan Cooper will win that spot. But Garnett is back from a knee injury. This is probably his last chance because you heard and saw Kyle Shanahan a couple weeks ago sound pretty impatient about Garnett and his inability to stay on the football field. By the way, it sure looked like Mike Person was going to win the starting right guard spot by default here because, well, Cooper is coming back from an injury. He was recently activated off the PUP list, and Garnett was sitting out for the last couple of weeks. So it was left to Person to be that right guard. Like I said, Cooper is going to win that position. Here's my projected offensive line. As mentioned before, right guard is really the only question mark here on that front 5. It's Staley, it's Tomlinson, it's Richburg at center, McGlinchey at right tackle. And maybe my projection will change as we watch more preseason games. But as we stand, I think Cooper is the guy. He's the most talented guard left there right after Laken Tomlinson. All right, how about this? Rookie Julian Taylor, is he impressing right now? Well, certainly sounds as if he is. 3 Jedheads on this one. Now, Taylor is reportedly a safe bet to make the 53-man roster, which is obviously fantastic news for someone who has a history of season-ending injuries going back to his time at Temple. Now, given Eric Armstead's injury history, it has opened the door here for Julian Taylor to really impress during training camp. But defensive coordinator Robert Saleh really pumped the brakes on the Taylor hype train, and I think rightfully so. Taylor is a very raw project. Going to take a lot of time for him to develop as a player in the NFL. Will he eventually be productive for San Francisco? There's reason to believe so. But right now, he's just a project. He is more of a long-term investment there for the 49ers. And then at rumor number 6, will Jerick McKinnon miss significant time? If anybody is wondering about that, do not worry too much. 1 Jedhead on this one. Could have been a lot worse, folks. Just a calf strain for McKinnon. He's out this week. Could be the next week and the week after. For all intents and purposes, it's really unknown, but he should be good for that Week 1 matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. The 49ers should not rush him back, and in light of the Alfred Morris news, it sure sounds like San Francisco is going to play this very carefully. So for Jerick McKinnon, not too bad, just a calf strain, but they're going to play the proper precautions to make sure Mr. McKinnon is there for Week 1 against Minnesota, a big-time potential NFC Championship game. Who knows?